All righty, and welcome everybody to day two, he said, of ArvCon. It is day two of ArvCon 2025. Welcome everybody. Welcome all to our charity event. I hope everybody is doing well. It's actually a little dim. Let me just turn on that. That should be a little better. Yes, lovely. Now you can all see me. Welcome. I hope everyone is doing well and as excited as I am for today's festivities. This is the longest day of ArvCon, although it is only halfway through when we get through with it, and I am very excited for this today. Very excited after what was a really awesome opening session last night. I'm going to introduce everybody in just a minute, as I always try to do in these circumstances. I will forego most discussion about my own channel other than to just say, please follow us here and please subscribe to us over on YouTube, which is if you type in !ArvTube, just because we're trying to spread the word there, both there and here. And the more people that we can get in here, the better. And I would ask everybody as you're watching today, please spread the word. Try to get as many people in here in a nice way. Please do not spam them, but try to get as many people in here as possible, both because they're going to have fun doing it and also because it's going to help us ultimately for the charity event. So this is day two of ArvCon. For those of you who have not been in ArvCon before, this is the event that we do every year to benefit the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation, which you can see over there. And as you can see, we raised last night $610 out of the $5,000 goal, which is a very good, strong opening salvo considering we don't usually stream on Friday nights. So that was awesome. And it was also a lot of fun if you had a chance to see it last night. And I am excited to keep things going today with this. And my hope would be that we can make a massive push towards that goal by the end of today, because the farther we get today, the more likely we can surpass even the goal Sunday and Monday. And of course, our overall goal for $5,000, once we hit that, we will have raised $40,000 to benefit the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation since the event began 11 years ago. So that's very exciting. And yeah, I'm just really pumped up to be able to have all the events that we're going to have today. We'll begin with a conversation with the Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation scientists, who I will introduce to you all in just a moment. Then we're going to continue with By the Dice Roll, playing Ghosts of Saltmarsh. That will be happening from 1 to 5 p.m. Eastern. And hello to Damon Runyon. Hello, Damon. I saw Damon Runyon was in here. I have a feeling I know who's behind the account. Literally a representative of Damon Runyon. And thank you so much for everything. Thank you as well for the support. And also thank you for the newsletter feature. I mentioned this yesterday, that we also got profiled, which was super exciting. Right there, you can see it. Right there is us. ArvCon celebrates 10 years of grassroots fundraising. So that was very exciting, and it arrived literally the day that the event started, which I thought was kismet of a very positive kind. So that was very exciting. So welcome, Damon Runyon. And yes, so we will have By the Dice Roll, Ghosts of Saltmarsh after our scientist conversation. Then we will have Expedition from the Mysterious Peaks. Again, a sort of science fiction fantasy tabletop role-playing game mashup. And then we will have a concert featuring Indy, who was on last night with his tabletop debut. That's going to go from 8:15 to 9:15. It's a good omen from the USPS. I totally agree. And then tonight at 9:30 p.m. Eastern will be Community D&D with the Shadowed Crew, as Shadowed Mage and the Shadow Crew will take over with Waterdeep Dragon Heist. In all, there will be 12 hours of content today, which is pretty freaking exciting, I think. And I can't wait for it. So let's really push that number to your right as you're watching me on the screen. And you may ask yourself, well, what exactly is that number? How do I take care of that? I'm glad you asked, because !donate will allow you to get over to our Tiltify campaign page. Whenever you contribute there, there'll be a big shocking orchestra hit, and then the number will shoot up, and then I will adjust that text box. And we I have a bunch of giveaways that we're doing thanks to the incredible mods. Triffid Mats, who is here, Prince Justin is here, Dragonspear did all of the original spreadsheet work, Shadowed Mage has done a lot of work on Arcana Spot. We have so many people who have jumped in. Hillness as well. Also, Hillness had a big contribution last night. So all of that is really exciting. And don't forget that while those donations are happening, the top donors, the second highest donor is going to get that smaller picture. I showed that earlier on. I'll show it later on today as well, from the amazing Prince Justin. And right above that is the large photo, which is going to come to you. Both of those are on metal, by the way, that will come to you from Drew the Damager if you are the top donor. Now, currently, the top donor with a $200 $250 donation is Thordak's Mommy. Hillness is right behind with $249. And I believe Nonstop is currently in third, which would get the prize pack of the books, the dice, and the 2 board games. So all of that is very cool, but I should point out that this is the aggregate collection of donations. So the more that you donate overall, the more that you'll be able to move up that donor list. And of course, I fully understand that for a lot of people, they are able to donate not very much as they see it, but any amount matters. Any amount, no matter how small, makes a difference. And of course, just being here matters as well. So donation is super important. Being able to spread the word and let people know about this and get the word out so we can get more people in here and more donations is super important. And your presence here with a friendly community that is sort of interacting with what's going on screen and all that stuff, that's all important as well. So thank you so much in advance for all the work that's going to happen over the next few days and all of your commitment to this. And thank you for being a part of this really awesome event. It is an honor to be able to do it every year. So with that said, the time has come. We are ready to go. So I am going to unmute myself, and I'm going to apologize if I interrupted any conversations that I couldn't previously hear. And then I am going to quickly make an adjustment to my screen so I can make sure that we have got all of the stuff ready to go. I believe we do. I just want to make sure that I'm not messing up how anything looks. Thank goodness for studio mode on OBS. There we go. Lovely. And now I'm going to unmute them. And it is my great pleasure now to welcome everybody to, there they are, our conversation with three Damon Runyon Cancer Research Foundation scientists. So it's my honor to have with us Dr. Brendan Floyd and Dr. Sangwoo Park and Dr. Catherine Triandafilo. I hope, Kat, I got that last name vaguely pronounced correctly. Okay, I was practicing. I hope so. So it's a great pleasure. So first of all, thank you all three for being here. And folks, these scientists are also going to be with us Monday for the tabletop role-playing game of Daggerheart, just released from Darrington Press, which is Critical Role's publishing company. And they are going to have Mike Underwood, one of the designers of that game, Daggerheart, will be leading them through a one-shot. So it's very exciting. So thank you all for being here. And I guess I'll just start by saying, Brendan, if I can begin with you, thank you again for doing this. And I wondered if you could just briefly talk a little bit about, your connection, I guess, to Damon Runyon, like what brought you to them, and maybe talk just a bit about the research that you're doing before we talk more about gaming and all that, other kind of fun stuff that the reviewers would know. Talk about your research if you could.
Postdoctoral fellow in Carolyn Bertozzi's lab at Stanford University. And I'm going to just start with the research and then go into what brought me to Damon Runyon, because I think those two are connected.
Okay.
So in Carolyn's lab, we use chemical tools, and I specifically use chemical tools to study proteins, so biomolecules that do things like form your hair. Like you get long strands of these things, they could form fibers like hair. So I study proteins on the outside of cells. So you're thinking of like your normal like cell structure with nucleus, mitochondria, all those things that we normally hear about in intro biology course. I think about things on the outside of there, so on the periphery. And these proteins are important because they're the first thing that, like, let's say in a cancer cell, they're typically what some of the first things you see changes in because they modulate many things within the cellular environment. So I study these proteins and I use chemistry, chemical tools really, to study how they're arranged. So you could call this like molecular cartography or like nanoscale mapping, but I basically study how things are arranged on the outside the cell. And I do this in really high throughput. So I do a lot of samples. I build these really large maps of how everything is arranged. So you could think about the old like people who would like travel to different, like, I guess, go into polar regions and map out all the different locations of the different towns and how like you could travel through those straits. I basically do that on the outside of a cell. Now, we could talk about what brought me to Damon Runyon, because I think their whole motto of like supporting high risk, high reward projects is really feeding, and like it really fits with this project in the sense that like looking at like the full arrangement of things and how that ties into cancer progression and in cancer development and what we could learn from that. It's pretty risky, especially when I first was starting off my postdoctoral research. Now we could look back a little and say, okay, no, this is useful. This is maybe a little less risky than initially thought, but certainly Damon Runyon coming in early and funding this research has been really changing, like game changing for this field in general. So yes, this is one of the things that brought me to it. And then I had many other alumni from this program, from like the Damon Runyon Fellows program, that I had met. I knew that they were great scientists that had contributed a lot to their respective fields. So I was really encouraged to like seek to get this fellowship, and I only had a blast and like felt really supported throughout this whole process. Um,
That's really cool. I just before I move on to Stephen, I want to ask just a quick follow up if on that if I can, because one of the things that's always interesting to me when I do these conversations is this idea of this high risk, high reward, and I understand that there is a risk associated with these things, but it's amazing how many times these risks seem to pan out in the reward,
yeah.
right? In the sense that there does seem to be the sort of general, I guess, monetary fiscal conservatism of these places that don't want to throw money, at things that might be, a bad bet. Except that it's through these bets, which generally seem to be good ones, it seems to me, that you get all of the advancements in cancer research. So I guess my question would be, is there something different about Damon Runyon's sort of acceptance of what is a educated guess, an educated risk, as opposed to I don't know if that's going to fit the bottom line, so we better not fund it. I guess I'm wondering what's unique in that way with Damon Runyon, if you could talk about that.
Yeah, so I can only say it from my perspective as an
Sure,
applicant, since I've never been on the selection
sure.
committee for any of these fellowships. But I have to imagine that they're looking at both the project type and the researcher themselves and thinking about like, okay, 10 years, 5, 10 years from now,
Yeah,
is this likely to be something that could push like whatever scientific field they're in forward? And I do think it's like a dirty secret of scientists, and maybe not so secret, that we tend to be conservative and like be stuck in our dogma and like it works this way. And because it works this way, we know it works this way, we're not willing to accept any of these, whatever new thing might be coming out at the time, or at least be skeptical about it. And I do think it's one of the big features in Damon Runyon and however they do their selection process. And I have to say, it's probably a combination of like looking at those written proposals and seeing how much thought has gone into it, and the researcher themselves, their background, and looking at their skill set and how likely they are to get the thing that they're saying they're going to do done and wherever they're currently located. I think it's a combination of those things that allow for them to see like, okay, this is likely to pan out. And if it didn't pan out, at least there will be some interesting discoveries along the way that will still contribute to cancer research in general.
yeah.
Yeah, and I will say it's major props to like Damon Runyon for being able to spot these projects and pull in the researchers that are able to push it through. And then we get the perspective of, oh, okay, it wasn't even high risk. It was just going to work all along, which is what we can always say in hindsight for these
Right.
stories,
Oh no, I'm
right?
sure you already know. Everybody already knows it's going to be fine. Like I'm sure.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I think that yeah, and it's interesting that the sort of the mindset that they have towards it really sort of allows researchers like you to take these big swings. So I think that's really neat. Dr. Park, Stephen, if I can come to you next, same question, I guess. If you could talk a little bit about the research that you're doing, and then yeah, if you have any thoughts about what brought you to Damon Runyon and your sort of impressions of them.
Yeah, so hello, my name is Stephen Park. I'm a postdoc fellow and professor in Marcella Mouse Lab in Rice General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. So I will start from what study doing in the Marcella Mouse's lab. So we are doing developing new CAR T cell is chimeric antigen receptor T cells. So basically what it is like collecting T cell from the patients and then engineering these T cells and then infuse the patients, and those T cells can fight against the cancer specifically.
Yeah.
So what I'm doing here is my PhD work is basically understanding the sugar molecule on the cell membrane. And then most of the mammalian cells have this sugar layer on the cell membrane, which is really thin and soft materials. And then I was able to measure the dose thickness of the sugar layer on the cell membrane. And then I found that there is a like perfect inverse correlation between this thickness of the sugar layer and immune cell killing. So based on that idea, I was thinking, oh, if I can like engineering these CAR T cells more, then I can penetrate or overcome the barrier, the sugar barrier on the cancer cells. So that's what I'm working in the Marcella Mouse's lab, like developing new CAR T cells. So my entire goal is like curing the cancer by targeting those sugars on the cancers.
Wow. That is I continue every time I hear literally everyone always tells me, every scientist, I'm always like, that's incredibly smart. I like I as a layman, but as someone who's heard many such projects of these, I'm continually impressed with that work. Can you talk a little bit about Damon Runyon for you? What it was like applying
Yeah.
to them, I guess, and just what your impressions of them are as an organization.
Yes, totally. Yeah, Damon Runyon, as Braden really nicely explained what Damon Runyon did. Exactly same to me as well. Like, I my background is physics and mainly developing a new microscope and understanding cell. And then I jump into the immunology, basically new field, and I'm trying to connect. It can be really high risk because it can be really skeptical later, but like Damon Runyon believes my research and then invest me, and then Damon Runyon basically give me some energy that I can do these right things to do right now. So that actually helped me a lot to motivating this research more, and I keep working on. And as I mentioned, my goal is curing the cancer, and then I believe Damon Runyon making that curing things, not for me but for the older patients.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I keep hearing that same thing about what Damon Runyon was able to do for folks in each of these cases. That's awesome. Well, I guess, Kat, I'll come down to you. The same question I asked as well. If you could talk maybe a little bit about your research, and then, yeah, your connections to what your sense is of Damon Runyon as you applied to them, and what they might have done in your case for your research.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Greg. And also excellent job with the pronunciation. Probably the best I've heard sort of off the bat.
Oh
So
my God!
great job.
Okay, thank God.
Yeah, so my research is focused on the idea of trying to understand how the tissues in our body, so the sort of collections of cells, act together to eliminate or at least to detect cells that aren't doing the right thing. This could be many things, but I'm specifically focused on cancer cells. There are many ways to address this problem, and actually kind of speaking to this sort of high risk, high reward aspect of the Damon Runyon Fellowship. When I first sort of talked about this project and proposed it, I was using a model that basically involves taking cancer cells and sort of making them into a ball, sort of like simulate a tumor. And what we sort of realized as we were doing the project was that the system just wasn't really complex enough to model some of the things we were interested in. It didn't really seem to be acting like a coherent tissue in the way we might expect like our bodies to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually pivoted to working with a more of like an organoid model that's made from, it starts from individual embryonic stem cells. I work with mouse embryonic stem cells. And as that system develops, the cells basically differentiate and they form little tiny tissues. And that is actually a great starting point to then introduce these sort of badly behaving or cancer-like cells and see how they behave in the tissue and how the tissue responds. And so I think it was really, their funding of the initial project, but then also their flexibility to understand that like the pivot in the project and how the ideas were staying the same, but the system changed. And it was sort of this is a system that people use to model developmental biology. It's never been used before, as far as I know, to study questions relevant to cancer, but I think they really saw the potential there and understood the motivation for doing it. And I think that's really enabled this project. And it's been really fun. I have always been interested in how cells behave in different contexts. My PhD work was in doing environmental sensing, and now I'm working on sort of almost like tissue sensing. And I think it's been really just transformative to have a foundation belief that the research that you're doing that might sound a little bit sort of out there is actually is quite well motivated and connects to their mission. I think that's been really great. Also, I'm sorry, I didn't mention I'm in Dr. Arjun Raj's lab at the University of Pennsylvania. Yeah.
Very cool.
Say that in the intro.
So let me actually, and I'll follow up with you, and then I'll work up the column. So one of the things that you've mentioned, and I've heard that now from Brendan and Steve as well, is this sense that there is this danger of getting into silos, I guess, specific to particular branches or forms of research or tracks of research, I guess. And as an academic myself, I know all about academics getting into silos. I'm wondering if there's a way in which, do you get a sense, and if this is not the case, feel free to tell me, do you get a sense that there is an encouragement of, because many of you did not come specifically from I was in biochemistry, I was in biology, and then I did this, and that you came from, many of you, from physics in Stephen's case or other cases. I guess I'm curious, is there a sense in which Damon Runyon encourages cross-track or cross-disciplinary or cross-silo, if that's a thing, discussion? Do you get the sense that there is, I know you all met at a retreat, for example. Are there opportunities like that to go beyond your own silos? And if not, but I'm curious how much Damon Runyon brings scientists together from different disciplines to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the answer is definitely yes, at least from my perspective. Obviously, as Brendan said, I've never sat on a selection committee, but if you just look at the sort of breadth of research that they fund and the backgrounds of the fellows, it is definitely not people who have studied cancer biology for their entire careers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that sort of community and the access to that community has probably been, for me personally, the most sort of rewarding part of having this fellowship. I mean, it can be very difficult to be a postdoc. You sort of end up, unlike being in a graduate program where you have sort of a cohort that you're with and a program. And, as a postdoc, you work very closely in your own lab. And that, I think, can sometimes lead without sort of other outlets to this sort of, not quite like groupthink or silo, but, you don't get a lot of chance necessarily to interact with people very outside of your field. And so I personally find the retreats like so energizing and exciting, and it's so cool to see all of the great research that everyone does and to get a chance to talk to people about it. I mean, they really give us a lot of time to kind of cross-pollinate and make collaborations, and it's really a great privilege, and I think we're all very grateful for it. I mean, I know their funding is very important, but also this sort of community that they foster is awesome.
Yeah, that sense of community is something I hear from Damon Runyon Fellows all the time, and that's why I was curious about that.
Yeah.
Stephen, what about you, coming from physics originally? Is there a sense that the Damon Runyon is your own inclination, I guess, to get out of the silo? Is Damon Runyon a part of that, do you think?
Yeah, totally. Honestly, like changing the field is other people or other professors sometimes or other like folks doesn't believe that quite well because, like, for example, my PhD is in biophysics, which I originally from physics and then move on to the bio. And then once I move on to the like bio folks, and then they say, "Oh, you're not doing bio, and you're doing physics."
Great.
When I go to the physics world, they always say, "Oh, you're doing not physics." Exactly the same way. So it's really hard to find the people who believe this research, like in both sides. So Damon Runyon definitely believe those things, and then I believe Damon Runyon can make it work because by supporting those people, and then I met so many different like fellows in Damon Runyon working on different fields, like me, like from physics to the biology or cancer, different fields, or chemistry, from the chemistry to the cancer as well. So yeah, I totally believe that's the truth.
I have it on good authority that both biologists, physicists, and non-biologists and physicists are all impacted by cancer one way or the other. Like, you're not just curing physicists, or biologists. It's amazing to me how much you get this sort of the buzzword interdisciplinary in the academic fields without necessarily the commitment to what it would mean to do that. And part of it is bringing people together and not being like, "What are you doing here? I thought you were over, in bio or physics," or whatever the case would be. So I've heard that as well from folks before. Brendan, what about you? Do you have a sense of this sort of silo work that otherwise people can get stuck in? And do you think that Damon Runyon has sort of helped foster an attempt to get over that by bringing people together in this way?
Yes, so I totally agree with what Kat and Stephen have already said about the siloing aspect, especially of being a postdoc. I think we get very entrenched in our fields and our labs, and you don't have some kind of department-wide system that you're as connected with as when you're a PhD student. And I do think Damon Runyon has done an excellent job of bringing people across many different fields together. And I do want to highlight some other aspect of the retreats that we haven't mentioned yet. And that's that Damon Runyon has different fellowship programs. Like, the three of us are on the Cancer Research Fellowship, so typically postdocs. But there are also like pediatric oncology fellows. There were quantitative biology fellows as well. So you have people with like MDs who are practicing clinicians who are seeing patients. Like, typically, I think there were a subset that were seeing like children that were suffering from cancer. And then you also have quantitative biology fellows who are typically moving from something like a hardcore statistics or computer science background into biology. And we were all brought into this like single room, all talking about our science together. And I think that was really encouraging. And as you say, fostering some kind of interdisciplinary action, like and actually taking those steps to bring it together, which is really exciting to see. And I do think Damon Runyon has heavily encouraged that. And I would be surprised if they ever stopped doing that. I think it's valuable for the scientific community as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. And I imagine there's Kat didn't quite put it this way, but there's also a sense of isolation that can sneak in otherwise, not
Yeah.
just sort of intellectually, but emotionally, if people are sort of off doing their own thing. And I have a question to follow up on that, but I do want to acknowledge first, thank you. First donation of the day, $5.03. Thank you from Prince Justin. So that brings us up to 615.03. The message is because Damon Runyon and their work rules, also for the first time, it's going to be team chaos, but it won't last. What you might notice for Brendan, Steve, and Kat, both here and on Monday, is that there is this weird dynamic where people start donating odd numbers and then even numbers as a battle, and I honestly couldn't care less so long as the number keeps going up. That's all that matters to me. So anyway, thank you, Prince Justin, so much for that. Brendan, let me follow up with, and yeah, Damon Runyon points out in chat, which is with us in chat, identify areas of cancer research where targeted funding can make a really outsized impact and build programs in those directions. Yeah. So I guess, Brendan, let me start with you, and this is kind of a semi-personal thing possibly, but I want to ask about morale. Because I asked about that before, and currently, in our current moment, especially in the United States, morale for scientists has not been at an all-time high because of what I could only argue is this assault on science from certain places. That is not an assault that is, I think, held by the majority, by the way. And I know there are a lot of people, including everybody here, and a variety of people that I know that do not share it. But I guess my question would be, in moments like this, how does either your research or the work with the foundation or the work with other scientists outside of those silos, does that help bolster morale at moments like this? And I recognize this is a personal thing that'll be different for everybody, but I wonder what your thoughts were about that.
Yes. So I could start on the practical side of things. So the bolstering certainly comes with having some level of funding that's guaranteed for an extended period of time to make sure that I could continue doing the research. But that's less the morale side of things. And I do think we've had kind messages sent out from like the CEO of Damon Runyon to all of us fellows early on during this previous administration getting into office, which I think helped. I think seeing these messages of support and the larger movements for the scientific community coming together and protesting some of the actions that we've seen in the past year have been another bolster and keeping our head up and going forward. I mean, needless to say, it's still hard. I think on a daily basis, many people in my lab are talking about things we're seeing.
Sure.
We have quite a lot of international either postdocs or graduate students who are currently seeing their positions as threatened. And it's hard to get past that, especially with the current headlines that we see almost daily at this point. I do think it's been useful and helpful having just people to talk to. We have a pretty open building that I work in, and just having all the other different research groups coming together and many times saying, we actually had a board introduced that's literally just a whiteboard in the middle of our lobby that's just how are you feeling today? And it's a whole bunch of different emoji faces, like a smiley face, a sad face, and there are different post-it notes that you could put on to how you're feeling. And I actually was surprised in the past week, we had majority of people moving up to the happy face. And it's amazing how just seeing that can make you feel even happier yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I think it's really come down to the little things, right? Like doing things like this, knowing that I'm now contributing towards this great, I guess, fellowship and overall institute getting more funding. That's the little things sometimes help quite a lot.
Yeah, and I love that. That's really cool to hear. Actually, reminds me a little bit about human beings helping humans, which is this is what this is about, right? Steve, I guess I would ask you this, Steve, and I'd ask you the same thing. What's your sense of where morale stands, and does this sort of situation with Damon Runyon and the things we've talked about, has it helped boost morale? What can be done? I guess that's another question. What can we do out here as not scientists in some cases to boost morale for you folks? How are you feeling about that work?
Yeah, so I can tell because I'm belong to the Harvard Medical School, so it's a major like issue in here. So in real fact, is many of postdoc and then graduate students and also like from the international students like having those issue, which is really it's really hard time for sure. And even me as well, like if without Damon Runyon supports, I might change the direction of what I want to do, and it might affect my job as well because it's a huge impact impact all the like the researchers
Of
like
course.
from the international. So yeah, yeah, so yeah, what I can do is my PI, Marcella Mouse always mentioned this, like we should focus on what we are doing, what we can do right now. Because other things we cannot control at this moment. Like even for me as an international student, I mean now not now but like it's really hard to control other things. So I can do what I can control, like doing more experiments and then making more data for the like future direction, and also those things actually help for the like the future patients as well. So that's what we can do personally, I think.
And there's a lot of wisdom, I think, in that idea. We sort of adopt that same approach. As I've said, I've often felt a little squishy at times, being like, we raised $40,000. I'm like, it's such a drop in the bucket. But what I've been told by Damon Runyon, by Megan McCurdy and the other wonderful folks there, is that it's not really the amount, it's the continued commitment, and it's doing what we can do in this community. Because many of these people, we focus a lot on community here. I have never and probably won't get a chance to meet in person many of these people who come from all over the world. Imaginary Exponent in chat, for example, is from Ukraine and is dealing with everything going on there right now. And yet, together as a community, we do what we can do. So that resonates quite a bit with me. Kat, let me come to you on that same question about morale, and your sense of where we're at with that, and in what ways, I guess, Damon Runyon and things like that that allow us to connect with each other, to cut down on that isolation. Does that help? Does it have the opportunity to help in terms in an era where morale has not been as high as it might be in the science fields?
Yeah, I mean, as everyone said, it's definitely a difficult time, and I think, not at least my impression is that not many of us got into this because we wanted to be political activists. We just really like doing science, and so it is a very strange place to find yourself in. And I think, you know, as you've mentioned, truly having the sort of explicit backing and support, continued support of people outside of what you directly do and who may never even benefit or even, see what you do, is very. I think we're all very grateful for that, and it does help. It makes you sometimes, when things feel very difficult like this, it sort of feels like you're just kind of like screaming into the void. And it's to know that other people are sort of on your side
There are
and are
people in the
willing to.
void. Yeah.
Yes,
Hmm.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it definitely helps, and I think being part of this foundation has is sort of a um, maybe more direct connection to those people outside of it. And it also, I think, it sort of creates this sense of accountability that, like I am inspired and want to do a good job for myself, but also because I know that, and I feel this way when I had funding from, public sources as well. It's like, the fact that taxpayers are contributing their dollars, or when people voluntarily give their money. I mean, it really makes you feel like what you're doing is more than a job, and that, not that you owe it to someone, but you want to do a good job. And so that helps too, that sort of feeling of, well, there will always be naysayers and voices of opposition, but, if you believe in the work that you're doing, and you think it will benefit everybody, even the people who are saying that, what you're doing is bad or wrong, or that they don't support it, that they, it's the benefits that I think scientists give to the world go beyond those kind of political things. And while it is a shame that it's sort of under attack, I think it's people like those involved in Damon Runyon and those who support it and similar foundations, I think is really what's going to help us as individuals kind of stay the course and make it through the day.
I'm glad to hear that, and also that we'll be here long after those attacks die down, because of the importance of this beyond anything political at all. Imaginary, that is a tremendous question. I wish I had time to ask it, but I need to ask these folks one thing about a game. I guess I'll ask. I will sort of cheat, and I'll ask two things. Well, all right. I'll ask this question quickly, and I guess I'll ask everybody to move quickly through, which is. Handling cross-area ideas. So like if you need a software that doesn't yet exist, you have a team to write it, or if you have a device that doesn't exist, do you call your engineering team? I guess I would broaden that out to say, can you speak to others outside the discipline, specific sub-discipline, and be like, do you have anything that works for this thing? I mean, Kat, I'm thinking a little bit about what you were just describing about not having a model that was complex enough to address that. So I guess if each of you, I'll ask each of you in turn, is there some way in which, how does that work? If you don't have something that you need and you need to reach outside the sub-discipline to get. And Kat, I'll start with you, I guess.
Yeah, happy to speak to that. I think one of my personal favorite things about being in maybe more academic research is that people, generally speaking, have an extremely open attitude towards those types of questions. And they're often so genuinely enthused that you want to use something that they made that they'll just give it to you for free and help and do tech support forever. It's kind of like,
okay.
So yeah, it's very different, I think, than the commercial space. Although to be clear, I've never worked in the commercial space, so I don't know, but it's my impression. Yeah, I think that spirit really carries through. I think, it's obviously all not sunshine and roses, but I personally have benefited greatly from it. To get this model, I just called up a collaborator and drove up with some dry ice to Princeton and got some cells from them. And, they gave me all these protocols. It was great. And so I think that attitude is quite encouraged.
That is good to
which
hear.
I love.
Yeah, that is good to hear. Stephen, what about you? Have you had the experience of having to go outside, I guess as a person, physics into bio and so on, where you've had to reach out to a collaborator elsewhere or someone else to get something you couldn't have gotten from within your specific work?
Yeah, totally. I had actually two experiences. The first one is I got a lot of requests from the different bio people to ask me to measure their thickness. So as a physics of view, it's really grateful for me too as well, because it's learning new biology, and as well as I provide the information to them. That's a point of view from the physics. And right now I also need other people like glycomics or sequencing, those things I cannot do that. So there's a two-way I usually do is as Kat already mentioned nicely, using the collaborator, because most of the scientists are open minds and they're happy to help. And then the second one is there's a lot of company as well, helping those research as well. So we usually use both. Yeah.
To be able to get that stuff through. That's really cool. Brendan, what about you? Have you had that experience of needing to reach outside the sub-discipline to get assistance, practical or otherwise?
Absolutely. I think it'd be really hard to find the scientist, especially a postdoc, that hasn't had this experience. I worked with synthetic chemists pretty heavily when I was a graduate student, where I worked in a computational biology lab. We collaborated heavily with this lab that would synthesize molecules for us. And I think really collaborations are one of the main pillars of our current science, the way we do with science nowadays. And I think it should stay like that forever. We talked about the role of interdisciplinary work in the sciences nowadays, and I think it's just so clear how important that is. If I needed a bit of software developed, I can go scream out to someone on campus, and someone will respond and start coding right away. And as Kat was saying, normally they'll do it just because they're so excited that someone cares about what they're doing, which is great. And I love that.
Yeah, that is cool. And as much as I like to sometimes make fun of academics in my own profession, I teach at St. John's University, a large university in New York, and it's I'm in the humanities, but the sense of being able to, we're doing a lot of work at the moment in battling generative AI and creating committees around artificial intelligence ethics. What a concept, putting ethics first before anything else. But that also is a collaborative effort. So it's nice to hear that sometimes in the academic space, we can actually get together and do some things as well on a campus level. Okay, I can't let you all go without one question that's hugely significant, and that, of course, is games. And so I have to ask Brendan, I mean, I know that Mike has laid out for you what this might look like, But tell me, I mean, when Megan, I believe it was trying to arrange this, when they came to you and said, "Hey, do you want to be on this crazy Twitch channel playing a tabletop game?" Were you like, absolutely, or were you like, what? You know, like, what's your relationship with games? I guess as we get ready for this on Monday.
I was like, absolutely. That was my response.
Okay.
So yeah, I've played games in multiple forms. And I should say I've never played a tabletop RPG, which is really why I was excited. I
Oh,
wanted
cool.
to do that for the first time. I've been playing video games since I was a kid. Like whatever like game you want to name, I've probably touched it at
Mhm.
least at some point. And I like play quite a few board games. Like my wife and I have been very into Spirit Island. We have a current like a
Yeah,
game still
sure.
going on our counter right now. So yes, games. I was very enthused for joining. Very glad to be there for Monday. So
Very, very awesome. Yeah, I have a couple back there myself, so it's part of the occupational hazard in this field. That's really cool. Stephen, what about you? Were you like sure, or like, oh yeah, like what's your feeling about these games?
Yeah, I answered that like absolutely. This is like definitely I can help. Like, and then after reading the game, I was like, game? But like because I'm not good at it. But like anything that I can do to help fundraising for the Damon Runyon, I'm more than happy to help. So that was my first impression. Yeah. And then like as Brandon mentioned as well, like this is my also first time to playing the TTRPG as well. So I don't know how to play. So but yeah, but correct me if I'm doing wrong, but like I'm more than happy to do. But
It's all good. We love people who are getting their start here. It's always a good time. And as I said before we went live, you're in good hands with Mike. Mike is a pro and has worked many times with scientists who have played or haven't played. So you'll be in good shape there. Kat, what about you? What's your feeling about games, and were you like, sure, sign me up, or okay? What's your sense of that?
I mean, I have to admit, I was a little hesitant. I think I actually, ironically, might have the most experience. I have played a tabletop role-playing game before. I was part of a brief campaign during COVID, and I actually read a ton of the like rule books and stuff as a kid. I think I was just like a huge nerd for like I didn't play the game. I just was like,
Yeah,
look at
yeah, yeah.
this whole like book of spells. This is so cool, you know. And but yeah, I haven't done it in quite a long time. But um, like I said, I'm always down to help. And I think this kind of thing, you should uh, get outside your comfort zone and do things that are new for you. And the like opportunity to put professional Twitch streamer on my CV, I was like, I can't pass that up.
Right, yeah, it was a long
So
play. I'm sure that way overrides all your other
yes,
accomplishments. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
That's
So
funny.
I'm excited. I think it's going to be very fun.
Awesome. It definitely is. And I will just add one last thing before I let you folks go, and then we'll see them again on Monday, is that, as I've said, many of the people, including many of the folks I see in this chat, have been impacted one way or the other, either as people that they've lost to cancer, for which this is directly personal. I am in that number. My mother passed away from breast cancer. My oldest friend died 2 years ago from a rare form of bone cancer. So these are things which are personal to me. But there's also a number of people that I speak to, including participants on our streams, who are survivors, who would, as I get blasted with a donation, that was, yes, Imaginary Exponent with a $10 donation. Thank you, Imaginaries. That brings us up to $625. Thank you so much, Imaginary, especially given, as I said, what you've been dealing with. That means a lot. So thank you, Imaginary, for that. So yes, we have so many survivors too, people whose lives have been measurably improved by the work and are here because of the work that comes from organizations like this. And so it's one reason that I'm always just personally grateful that I get to speak to all of you, in an event like this, separate from anything else about raising the money, because it's great to be able to see, as I say, human beings helping human beings. And so that matters a lot to me. So in that spirit, any last thoughts, I guess, from anyone? I guess I'll work from Kat up. Kat, any last thoughts you have before Monday?
No, I mean, I guess maybe I can speak a little bit to the, personal connection. One thing that drew me to this foundation in particular and to studying cancer is when I was in college, I had a student that I mentored and tutored for a couple of years. He was a student athlete, so he was sort of like required to participate in this program. And I was always struck by how, he didn't need any tutoring. He was just this like very curious person. And so we'd like sit and talk about these like ideas, tutored him in science. And I remember thinking like, I was like, I can't wait to see what this guy does. And then like 2 years after I graduated, I got like a notice that he had passed away from cancer. And I think it's very young at the time, I'd never experienced that before. And it really has stayed with me like to this day. And while at the time I was already in grad school, it didn't really impact me directly at the time. But then when I was picking postdocs and trying to think about what I wanted to do next, that really came up for me. And I thought, how can I maybe do something that's a little closer to directly helping people? Yeah, so I'm really grateful to have this opportunity.
Thank you for that. Stephen, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, so I have a similar experience. I was a firefighter when I was in Korea as a military service. So I saw many like dead people before because I need to like basically see 7 or 8 dead people per week. But like because I was in EMT. But like the most devastating thing I have ever thing is I had to transfer the cancer patients to the biggest hospital like 4 or 5 a.m. But like during 1 hour there's nothing I can do for them. Like other patients, I can do like, measuring the blood pressure or whatever they can. But like for the cancer patients, like I was not able to anything, like just sitting there and watching the patients. Like there was so like I feel nothing. So at that moment I wanted to do something with my physics background. That's the motivating me to like move on to the cancer biology. And so this is really big opportunity to me, like to helping the cancer patients. So thank you so much.
Uh, that's really powerful. Thank you. And Brendan, last thing to you. Any last thoughts you have?
Yeah, I can continue with the personal statements since that seems to be a theme going. So I had a grandmother who died pretty young in her 60s due to a brain tumor. And this is really one of my first direct losses due to cancer. And of course, as you get older, cancer is an awful disease. So you see, and really prevalent. So you see many others that are starting to succumb to this disease that you're just like, why isn't there anything to do against this? It certainly impacted my choice in a postdoc. I was seeing a lab that was working on developing new therapies for treating cancer, and I really wanted to get involved. And I think Damon Runyon has just been a great pillar again for just supporting this research. And I think the people I meet who care, like the problems they care about, and the way they're going at attacking these problems have only encouraged me for the possible therapies we'll be seeing from 5 to 20 years down the line. Because I do think this is a problem that we should be able to stop. And I'm personally very optimistic for what the future has in store. If society doesn't collapse, that is, of course. Always the big caveat for these
Yeah,
things.
exactly. Well, events like this on a small scale, scaled up so that there are multiple examples of it, is how we keep from collapsing, honestly. So
Exactly.
so I hear that. It has been a tremendous honor to be able to speak to these scientists, and that theme of helplessness is exactly why we started this 11 years ago, was out of that exact same desire. And so it's pretty cool that people are operating on a similar wavelength. Chat, can we get some respect and love for these scientists who you will see on Monday again, playing in 2 cases, their first TTRPG, and in a third, first in a while. But thank you so much to Dr. Brendan Floyd, to Dr. Sang-Woo Park, and Dr. Catherine Trianda-Falou. Thank you so much to all 3 of you, and we will see you on Monday for some tabletop play.
Thanks so much, Greg. This is great.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All righty. Wow. That was power. I'll just need a moment. That was powerful stuff. Mostly because I've heard stories like that before, but all of them are powerful, but the story about the firefighting and yes, I'm fine. I am fine. Except that it's always very inspiring to me in a positive way. I always come out of this event tired and inspired, always, because you have this combination of people that are doing this extraordinary work, and are doing this extraordinary work in a way. I also feel optimistic, and I feel optimistic because of the students I work with in my regular day job, and I feel optimistic because of scientists that I speak to like this. So that was awesome. Thank you so much to those who donated. And if you were inspired as I was, and if you're like, this is amazing, what can I do? Well, one thing you can do is you can donate to the cause. And again, if you type in this donate, which is not spelled with an S, donate, which is that way, you can get on board right now. I love hearing that ba-ba, and I love seeing that like that. Like that, exactly like that, as we got an anonymous $174.97 donation. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about, is that brings us to $800 and more giveaways. Thank you so much to the anonymous, my favorite person, anonymous. No, thank you so much to the anonymous donator who did that. And also Team Order. I saw Team Order just there to bring us up to $800. That is amazing. Thank you. Thank you. That means, by the way, that currently the ArvCalists are still ahead in the all-important who raised the most money battle. But most importantly, of course, what it means is that we are continuing to move onward and upward. We are now only a couple of $100 away from our $1,000, from 1/5 of the way there. So we are in very, very good shape. I love doing this event. I really do. I love the opportunity to bring these people together in the way that we did this. I really love the opportunity to be a part of this, so it's awesome. All right, now I see Wholesome Horror Gaming in chat, and that means that there are some people waiting to play some D&D, y'all. So I am going to go and prep. I have it mostly prepared already, but I need to send out the Zoom link to them and capture video. So I am going to be gone now for about 5 minutes. Please do not go anywhere, okay? I will be back very shortly, and then we will be introducing the next part, which is the By the Dice Roll crew playing Ghosts of Saltmarsh. And so if you want to see some tabletop, make sure that happens. And again, bring on everybody that you can. Bring people into this mix to the extent that you can. Hold on, what am I holding on for? Oh, and also Damon Runyon, thank you again for making the connection with these scientists. Again, I say this every time, but thank you so much. And we've still got a long way to go in this. So yes, Echo, what's up? What am I holding on for? Make it quick. Because I gotta go over and do things. I got stuff to do. Oh, I see. That's why. Thundercats! Oh! That is what we call in the business a raid, people. That's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Flayos. We come bearing Canadian assistance. Oh my gosh, the Canadian assistance. Now I can go AFK. Thank you so much, Flayos. And by the way, guess who's joining us with By the Dice Roll today? I wonder if it isn't the proud Canadian member of By the Dice Roll, whose name rhymes with Bleos. I wonder if that could possibly be what it is. Thank you so much, Flayos, for the raid. I appreciate it. Okay, listen, and boy, God knows we need Canadian assistance. We certainly do. All right, everyone hold tight. I'm going to be back here in just a little bit with By the Dice Roll. And so hold tight, everybody. And thank you all for being there. And thanks so much for the raid, Flayos. And Raiders, stick around. Don't anyone go anywhere. Bring more people in, and let's keep this rolling. Don't forget to donate. Let's keep going. And yeah, much love, everyone. I'll see you in a few minutes.